Now that we understand a bit more about MIDI and also the concept of virtual or VST instruments, it's time to start recording some of those tracks inside of a Cubase project. So I'm going to start a brand new Cubase project. I'm going to go into the File pull-down menu, select New Project, and this one's going to be empty. I'm going to have it prompt for the project location and then hit Continue. And I'm going to navigate to my external hard drive, go into my Cubase projects folder, and then I'm going to make a new folder with the title of this song that I'm going to be working on throughout this tutorial, which is called The Right Track. Then I'm going to click the Open button, and then, as you've already learned in other videos, as soon as you see the project window, go ahead and save that project to the exact same project folder that you created. So I'm going to save this project file with the exact same name, so The Right Track. Now, as I mentioned in a previous video, I'm not going to be using any purely MIDI tracks. Instead, I'm going to be using instrument tracks. And an instrument track is a combination of a MIDI front end and an audio back end. And what's in between is a virtual synthesizer called a VST instrument. So let's go ahead and add one of those instrument tracks to this blank project. So I'm either going to go to the project pull-down menu, select Add Track, and then select Instrument, or you can also right-click in the Track column and select Add Instrument Track. Now, one of two different screens is going to become visible when you select Add Instrument Track. And what we're looking at here is the browser. This is a sound browser for all of the VST instrument sounds that come with Cubase. Now, if you don't see this sound browser, then it means that you don't have your browser open. So if your dialog box looks like this when you select Add Instrument Track, it means that your browser is closed. So to open the browser, click on the Browse button. And then you may need to resize the screen a little bit so that you can see everything that's going on here. Now, the sound browser is divided into two main windows. The first window is the filters that allow you to choose what sort of sound you're looking for and really narrow down the choices so that by the time you get to the search results window, you can see all of the sounds that meet the criteria that you're looking for. So let me show you a couple of extra quick buttons before we get started. And those are the reset buttons. There's a reset button in the results column, so I'm going to click on that. And then there's also a reset button in the filters window, so I'm going to click on that as well. And that will just get all of the sounds that we have in Cubase available to us. But now we're going to start to narrow down the possibilities. So every Cubase project that I start with, because I work in more of a pop music world, starts with drums. So that's the first sound that I'm going to browse for. So to do that, I'm going to go to my first column in the filters window, and I'm going to look at categories. So you can see that they start in alphabetical order. And they go from accordion to bass, brass, chromatic percussion, drums and percussion, and so on. So I'm looking for a drum set, so I'm going to single click on drums and percussion. Then, to the right, there's a subcategory. Now, there's a whole bunch of different things that we can select here, including just tom-tom sounds or just snare drum sounds, but what I want is a drum set, or a collection of drum sounds. And the way drum sets work on your MIDI keyboard will be more apparent when we load a drum set sound. But basically, every sound on a drum set is going to be on its own note of your MIDI keyboard. So let's go ahead and click on Drum Set, and then we can choose from a style or more sound characteristics, but more importantly, we can choose which instrument they're going to come from. Now, when you're working in Cubase outside of this tutorial, you don't necessarily have to do this next step, but to make sure that you and I are looking at the same list of instruments, go ahead and click on Halion Sonic SE. That way, we're only going to be seeing sounds that you and I both both have that are coming out of the VST instrument called Sonic SE. And we're going to be learning a lot more about Sonic SE in a different section. But just make sure that you have Sonic SE highlighted. And then in the search results window, you'll be presented with a list of all of the sounds that meet the criteria that you have chosen in the filters window. So essentially what we're looking at in the search results are drum and percussion categories with drum sets out of the Sonic SE instrument. You'll also notice that not only is the name of the instrument listed, there's also a rating system so that you can choose your favorite sounds when you come across them. So what I'm going to have you do right now is start to browse some of the sounds. And all you need to do is single click on any of the sounds that are in the search results window, and then with your connected MIDI keyboard or pad controller, if you're a percussionist and you're using a pad controller, you're just going to start to play some notes. Now the trick for a MIDI keyboard is that most of the standard drum sounds are found on the lower notes of your MIDI keyboard. In other words, if I hit C1, which is the last note on a 61-note keyboard, then I'm going to hear the bass drum. If I play the D above that, I'm going to hear the snare drum. So when you play your MIDI keyboard, you're going to be able to audition the sounds, just like calling up patches on a real synthesizer. So what I'm going to have you do now is scroll down until you find the drum set named Rock Standard Kit 2. So single click on that, and it will take just a moment for these to load, depending on the speed of both your computer and your hard drive, because these are sample based. They have to load those sounds into memory. So now that I have that kit highlighted, I should be able to play some notes on my MIDI keyboard and hear those sounds, which are going to be different than the ones that we had selected earlier in a different patch. So this is a little bit more aggressive sounding drum kit, and I like that. So to confirm that patch selection, I'm going to click on Add Track. And what's going to happen in the background is a new instrument track is going to be made, and the Sonic SE VST instrument is going to be assigned to that track. So no other settings are going to be required to record this track as long as we record enable the track. So I'm going to click on Add Track, and as you'll see, a lot of the things that we've already learned about have happened. We can see that a new instrument track has been added to our track list with the instrument track icon, and then the inspector has been loaded with all the parameters for that track. And the track itself is record enabled. So now if we play some notes on our MIDI keyboard, we should be able to hear that drum set. So now that we have an instrument track loaded and we have a sound loaded onto it, we can actually record something onto that track. So now I'm going to do some recording, and instead of using my mouse to control the transport, I'm going to use the numeric keypad. And in a previous tutorial, we learned how to do all of the transport, like play and record and stop, on the numeric keypad of our Mac. So I'm going to hit the record button, and I should hear the default click track because I have the click track on, and I have the default tempo of 120 and a 4/4 time signature. And then I'm going to just double check by going to the transport pull down menu that I have the pre-count on so that I get a measure for free. Let's just double check that I do have one pre-count measure by going to the metronome setup window, and I do. So now I should be able to start recording. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to record a very simple drum part using both hands. So I'm going to turn around here, and then I'm going to hit the record button. I just recorded one bar of drum notes there. So I'm going to hit number 1 on my numeric keypad and then press the Enter key for play, and I should be able to hear that back. So since I can hear that playback, it means that I'm all set to start recording all of the VST instruments that I want to use in my project. But over the next series of videos, we're going to be spending a little bit more time on drums, and one of the most invaluable recording tools for recording drums is the cycle record mode, and we'll talk about that in the next video.